So, life after football, man. Once you hung your pads up for the last time, the trials and tribulations that you learned through all of it, how have you applied those things to your personal life?
Well, you know what? Like I said, I was always a pretty resilient person. And, the man upstairs always had an avenue for me. Even after I hung up sports, football, I didn't necessarily know, like, okay, what am I going to do? And then Coach Gundy called me after he found out that I got released. And he was like, hey, you've had good character. And actually, one of my best friend was the strength coach at Oklahoma State University at the time, and they asked Rob Glass, "Hey, Jamie Thompson come down to be a graduate assistant, a strength coach." So I'm just like, "Okay, yeah, let's do that." I was like, "Okay, I got opportunity to go back to my alma mater and work there, and it was great. And I thought I was going to be a strength coach. I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be a strength coach, great." And now, granted, I said when I left out of NFL, I was full of information. So I'll never forget this. Gunter Brewer, I think he's with the Philadelphia Eagles now, or if I'm not mistaken, somewhere. Maybe he's with the Cardinals. But he came to me and was like, "Hey, man, can you uh, can you look up these receivers for me?" We was getting ready to play Ole Miss. And I was like, "Okay, I'll look them up for you, because I'm real gullible. And, if you tell me to mop a floor, I'll mop a floor." So I ended up going and looking at film. And I wrote a whole report, like 5-6 page report on each, like on the receivers, strengths, weaknesses, routes I think that can beat their coverages. Like I did the whole nine because I just came out of NFL and I was very thorough. So when I brought it back to him the next day, I gave him a whole packet. He was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "You said, look at the receivers for you." He was like, okay, thank you. So anyways, he took that to Mike Gundy. Mike Gundy came down to, actually Mike Gundy went to the AD, showed the AD. Mike Gundy and the AD came down to the strength conditioning room and was like, "Hey man, this is actually really, really good." He was like, we can use you up top as a quality control defensive assistant. I was like, "For real?" I said, "Okay." I said, "Oh yeah, I'm about to be a football coach now, college football coach." So, I went from one endeavor, being a strength and conditioning coach, then I went up to being a quality control assistant for the football team. And, I started writing reports, and that was before they had those assistants now that do the actual reports. I did it back then. And I was like, okay, I can see myself being a football coach. And I actually got offered a job at Tulane from a guy named Tim Beckman. He was defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State. Went to, I think, Tulane or Ohio, somewhere where he went, Division One, and I ended up turning it down. I was about to get married, and then I know myself, and I know what type of coach that I wanted to work for. And at that time, I didn't want to work with Mr. Coach Beckman, good football coach, but there's some things that I was just like, I don't know. But anyways, I was at a standstill in my life, and I was like, okay, I'm about to get married. Do I want to stay in coaching? Because coaching, they spend hours upon hours upon hours up there working, and they come home late. And I've seen, like, I'm very observant, and I've seen some families struggling, in their marriage because of the time. And I know my wife my girlfriend, which is my wife now at that time, she loves time, and I didn't want to sell her short, even though the money would be great. But money and time is you got to have a balance there. And then I never forget, I started praying to God, say, "Lord, if this is for me, let it be. If this is not, open the door for me to go somewhere else." So I ended up going to, well, actually, 3 days after I prayed about that thing, my college coach from junior college, who was at Iowa State, he he got fired from Iowa State. He went to a high school in Alabama called Hoover High School, which is like really, really one of the best high schools in the nation. It was on a TV show and all of that stuff. And he called me and said, "Hey man, I know you're coaching right now, but he said, you don't need to be in that coaching life. It's a lot of time. It almost cost me my marriage." I was like, bingo. My mind was like, I'm thinking the same thing. He's like, "Come on down to Alabama. And, I got a coaching job for you down here at the high school. Really great. They'll pay you really good. And I think it'll be good for your family." So I'm like, "Okay, Lord, that's the door that you open." So I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." He said, "Only thing is you got to get your teaching certification." I said, "Man, I ain't go to school to be a teacher. I went to school to be a social worker." So anyways, ended up going down there, and I started teaching down there for a year. And granted, I told you my best friend, he's the strength and conditioning coach, but he's also a pastor in Oklahoma, down here in Oklahoma.
That's cool.
So I ended up leaving and went down there for a year and a half. I enjoyed it. It was great. Me and my wife got married. You know, they gave my wife a job that she wasn't even qualified for. So we living a good life. And then, you know, God actually came to me and told me that I need to come back to Oklahoma.